constitutional. So we put it as it is. We note the issue that he has raised, but we'll continue with the meeting. That's the input that I'm making, so that we don't waste time discussing what is right, what is wrong. We have got legal advices from the Parliament who can be able to deal with any matter that is related to that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Matibe. The last person is Honorable Kosana. Yes, we'll be the last person, and then from there we'll give the department.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairperson. We acknowledge the concern of Honorable Matibe, but what we can say, Chairperson, we are a unitary state, we are not a federal state. As we are discussing this, we'll be listening from the presentation of the Deputy Minister, all of us. Then for finality, we're still going to deal with it in our meetings in the different provinces, and you at national level. There is no harm on that. If there is any need for legal advice, I should think that legal advice will come in, but we continue with the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Skosana. Honorable members, I put the agenda in front of you. It's open and welcome. Apologies, presentation from the department, and discussion closure. The fifth one is the closure. Anyone who moved or who wanted to add or subtract from the agenda?
Yes, Chairperson.
Honorable members.
Chairperson, I move for the adoption of the agenda as it is.
Okay. Any seconder? Any seconder?
Chairperson. Honorable Chair, I second the agenda.
Honorable
BP second.
Honorable BP second. Okay.
Now, Honorable Chair, I'm objecting to the agenda as it is.
Oh. No, you are fine. No, it's okay, Honorable. It's seconded, this agenda.
It doesn't matter if it's seconded. I'm opposing it, and I'm sure I'm going to get a seconder for my opposing view. So if you can give me an opportunity.
Honorable members.
Can I speak, Honorable Chair?
Chairperson.
Yes.
Can I speak, Honorable Chair?
It's Member Arnold, Chair.
Yes, Arnold.
Can the honourable member of the EFF member Makausi's apology just been noted in the minutes for the next meeting? Mother passed away, so thanks, Chairperson.
Thanks, Honourable Arnold. I was about to tell the members about the passing away of Honourable Makausi's mother. Her apology is accepted. Any other apologies? Any other apology?
Honorable Chair.
Yes.
There is an apology of MEC Shongwe from Mpumalanga, who's unable to attending this important meeting.
Okay. Honorable Shongwe from Mpumalanga, MEC. Any apology? DM, do you have any apology?
Yes, Chair. I have an apology for the minister who is attending a cabinet committee today.
Oh, yes. Okay. Anyone, any apologies? Yes.
Honorable Chair.
Yes.
Northern Cape.
Northern Cape.
Chairperson, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. The Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Agriculture Northern Cape is going to join the meeting a little bit later, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you.
Chairperson.
Yes.
Chairperson Salga.
Oh, yes, Salga.
Yes. No, Chairperson is Councillor from one year.
Oh, Councillor from one, you're welcome.
Yes, can you recognize Salga? It's observing in the meeting.
Oh, thank you very much. I omit that. You're welcome, Honorable Councillor Tongwani from Salga.
Honorable Chairperson, Skosana.
Yes. Honorable Skosana.
Honorable Chairperson, the honorable member from DA has objected our agenda, but we didn't hear the content of why he should, in fact, object the agenda. Can you finish with that so that we continue with our meeting?
No, we are continuing with the meeting because there's no seconder from that one, and we cannot discuss. We have
Honorable Chair, point of order. Honorable Chair, point of order. You didn't give me opportunity to finish, as the member just said. If I can finish, then there's a possibility that somebody can second my view. Let me finish first, please. Can I finish?
Can you finish?
Honorable Chair, can I finish?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable
Can
Chair.
you finish?
Honorable
Can
Chair,
you finish
I object on.
With 1 second, because we don't have time to discuss the apology. We have passed that matter of the apology, agenda. We are in another item, Honorable
Honorable
Smith.
Chair,
But
point of order. You cannot operate like this. Honorable Chair, I'm sorry, but you cannot operate like this. There was an objection. You didn't want to hear the objection. You can't have just two members agreeing to an agenda and then automatically throw out any objecting view. You have to hear me out
Smith,
on my
listen to you.
objecting view.
I am listening to you, Honorable Smith.
Thank you very much,
Honorable
Chair.
Chair, Honorable Chair, can you not, Comrade Pillay? Honorable Pillay.
Yes.
I want this.
Honorable Pillay. Honorable member. Honorable. Yes.
I'm saying the Honorable Smith is saying that this is the first time this kind of a situation has arrived. We never had a video conferencing. So there is nothing wrong and you have already ruled on this matter. Let's proceed the meeting. Thank you.
Yes.
Chairperson.
Honorable Kathy.
Chair, I can just say to you, I've been in the 5th Parliament. The Forestry Bill has been referred to the Select Committee in the 5th Parliament. Due to the number of bills that we dealt with in that stage, it was a total bottleneck of bills. The committee decided that we will not be able to deal with the Forestry Bill in the 5th Parliament. Therefore, the bill was revived in the 6th Parliament, the Parliament that we're in now. Okay. Now, what you've said, Chair, and I tried to chat with you, but you didn't see that, is this is wrong to say that we dealt with the bill before. Today is the first time we are dealing with the bill as the Select Committee in the NCOP. The bill was not dealt with by provinces. If the bill was sent out to the provinces, that is a process that happens when the bill is referred to the NCOP. The bill is being sent out to provinces to take note. They have to wait for the bill until we refer the bill to them after our committee dealt with it. Now, the decision to invite the provinces was done in the whips and the programming committee, where I said I don't agree with the process. But let us not go into that now. What I'm trying to say is we are getting the presentation from the department today for the first time. We haven't dealt with this bill yet. So the provinces is listening to this presentation in the same way that the committee is listening to this presentation. So the assumption that we dealt with the bill is wrong. I'm sorry, I don't know where it comes from. Then secondly, I want to raise a question before we start, because this is very important. I received the presentation and a lot of other documents, but I would like to know, where is the B bill? I haven't received the bill per se, plus the memo. We received a report from the Portfolio Committee that we can take or we can't actually take it into consideration because that was not what served before us. What I want to know is where is the report from the Portfolio Committee, actually not from the National Assembly, to say this is the B bill with a memo and say this bill has been passed by the NA and the following amendments has been done to this bill. Because I would like to know before we start, are we dealing with a bill as we received it from the NA, or are we dealing with a bill that's coming from a department where they put in some things that are not there, were not there before? Because we went through a thing like that in the NCOP in the previous term, and that bill got blocked in the NCOP. So unfortunately, I'm so sorry, but we have to clear these things out. Thank you.
No, thanks, Honorable Kathy. Your question that you have posed, the department will answer those questions when they present. Honorable members.
Now, sorry, Chairperson. Sorry, Chairperson. Sorry.
Raised by Honorable Smith and Honorable Kathy are noted, and the department must answer when they present.
No, Chairperson. Sorry. On a point of order, the department.
What is your point of order, Honorable Kathy?
Sorry, Chairperson. It's not the department. Yeah.
What is the point of order?
The point of order is the department cannot answer these two questions that I raised. This is the committee. The department is giving us the input on what they wanted in the bill or the bill as they see. They cannot comment on the process of the bill. We are now the bill makers. This is the committee's process. The table staff, the legal opinion, or the processes of the NCOP. This is what is going on here. The department cannot come and tell us why the province is joined, first of all, and the department cannot tell us what bill it is. Can Askar please give us an indication on with what bill are we dealing? Is it the bill as we received it from the NA, or so this input from the department, is it on that bill, or has there been another process involved as well? Because a lot of time lapsed between when the bill was referred to the NCOP and we're dealing with it now. We just need to get that clarity. Thank you.
Honorable Chairperson.
Yes. Yes, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. If really the bill lapsed in the previous administration and it's being researched, the department is briefing the select committee, that is the beginning of the process of the bill.
Honorable GM. Honorable GM, we can't hear you.
Honorable Chair.
Yes.
Can I start, Chairperson?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Chair, and morning to members of Parliament and also to provincial delegates. And I heard that Salga is also amongst us here. Yes, indeed, Chairperson, most of the questions and the concern that you have raised with regard to what does our people benefit out of this amendment. This is an amendment to the National Forest Act, which was promulgated in 1998. Therefore, I'm joined by the acting DG and also the acting DDG responsible for forest management in the department, because you are aware that our DG, Mamuno Saba, is no longer with the department from the beginning of the month. That is from the 1st, which is yesterday. Chairperson, the department is responsible for the management of forests in the country. And this mandate is backed by the National Forest Act, the act that we are talking about today, which was first promulgated in 1998, as I have already indicated. The purpose of the act is to promote sustainable management and development of forests for the benefit of our citizens. It provides special measures for protection of certain forests and trees, and to promote the use of forests for environmental, economical, educational, recreational, cultural, and health purposes. It is the responsibility of the department to create a comprehensive regulatory framework through policies and legislation to improve sustainable forest management in the country. Many poor people and vulnerable groups that are located in the rural areas rely on agriculture, forest for their livelihoods. Chairperson, the DDG will take us through the amendment on this piece of legislation. All the concerns that have been raised by yourself, I think it will be responded to by the presentation that Ms. Susan is going to take us through, who is then supported by the acting DDG. What is the DDG? DDG, what is his name? Okay, then it's Isham. Isham is here, who will also then support Susan Sileke. And we are, I think the member is correct by the issue of the processes followed after the act has been presented to the National Assembly. Because when we presented or a briefing to the National Assembly with regard to amendments to the act, they do all the processes and add whatever they want to add. And then after the department has done that, the National Assembly then approved it. Then it says that then it will then taken over to yourselves. So what we are presenting here is what we presented at the National Assembly. There's nothing new that we have added, unless there was something that they requested us to add, but this was approved by the National Assembly. Therefore, we are correct by coming to you and say that you also then follow the process that you are supposed to follow. I thank you very much. I think Honorable Susan will just take us through then the piece of legislation, and then we'll then respond to questions that members might ask at the end of the presentation. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, DM, for clarifying us. Now I'm going to give the acting DG to present.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. It's the acting DG Isham Abada. It's actually the acting DDG for Forestry, Ms. Leseke, who's going to be doing the presentation for us, Honorable Chair. Chair, are you hearing me?
Yes, acting DG. You can proceed.
Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, Deputy Minister. My name is Murungwa Susan Leseke, the current acting Deputy Director General for Forestry Branch. I'm accompanied by my colleague, Me Pumeza Nodada and Ntamulo Shilubani. I would prefer that we skip this first slide. This is the outline of the presentation. Let's go to the next slide. And this, we are trying to say, these are the lexicons or the acronyms that are used in the bill. We can go to the next one. The purpose of this presentation is to brief the committee on the National Forest Amendment Bill B11 of 2016, which seeks to amend the Principal Act, that is the National Forest Act of 1998. The main objective of this act was to promote sustainable management and development of forests and provides for the protection of certain forests and trees. Next slide. Why was it necessary that we amend this act? We recognize that there is a need for change and that the legislation is not static. It has to move with time. And during the implementation of the Principal Act, we identified the need for improvement on existing sections. We also wanted to make the legislation more responsive to the operational realities and challenges on the ground. Next slide. The objective of the bill is to provide for clear definitions. For an example, we had natural forests, which was not clear, as well as the definition of woodlands. The second objective was to provide for trusteeship of the nation's forestry resources, to increase the promotion and enforcement of sustainable forest management, increase the measures provided for in the Act in order to control and remedy deforestation, especially during these difficult times of climate change. The next slide. It is also to provide for appeals against decisions taken under delegated powers and duties. It's also meant to reinforce offenses and penalties and to promote equity by including the youth, women in the National Forestry Advisory Council. The council's powers is to advise the minister with regard to issues that are related to forestry in the whole sector. The next slide. This is the process followed. Maybe it will provide some clarity. In 2012-13 financial year, we went out for stakeholder consultation. The publication of the draft bill was gazetted in May 2013, as per that above government gazette notice. And in March 2015, it was published for public comments. Then we went out again for stakeholder reconsultation in 2014-2015 financial year, after the then portfolio committee saw the need for us to broaden the consultations. The next slide. The consultation with government structures such as NEDLAC as well was done in the then Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. We also had to go through the pre-certification of the bill by the state law advisors. We engaged the Department of Public Monitoring and Evaluation for the socio-economic impact assessment. If I may pause here, the CS, as we normally call it, begins to address the questions that the Honorable Chairperson asked in the beginning, to say, is the bill implementable? Will it benefit the poor? Is it economical? So if it doesn't pass this, we wouldn't even be here where we are, honorable members. The bill was also introduced to Cabinet in April 2016, and then it was referred to the Portfolio Committee of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries in May 2016. Next slide. The publication of explanatory summary of the National Forest Bill in the Government Gazette was, in terms of Rule 241, was done in the National Assembly in July 2016. Another publication of the bill for public comments and hearing to the by Portfolio Committee was done in August 2017. Next slide. We had various deliberation on clauses of the bill when we were doing the stakeholder consultations, especially when we were doing them with the Portfolio Committee on Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, and that led to this reconsultation. And the bill was then adopted for further processing in May 2018. The bill was tabled in the National Assembly in August 2018. As we speak, according to our knowledge, it is now currently in the NCOP and has been publicized for comment on December 6, 2019 until 24th January 2020. Next slide. So this, honorable members, and these are clause by clause analysis of the gaps that we identified and what the current bill will seek to address. The clause 1, there's an insertion on definition under section 2. The new insertion then begins to propose the amendments. That is, in terms of assignment, as it is now in the bill, it means permanent or temporary transfer. Under A power duty, role, or function from the functional domain or national government to one or more provincial governments, organs of state, to persons who are not an organ of state. Proposed amendment again is in Roman figure B. Is in B, the administration of matter listed in Schedule 4, Part A of the Constitution. The gap, it is to assist in the interpretation of terms in the Act. This is a new insertion when it comes to the assignment, which was currently not defined in the Principal Act. Next slide. We had an insertion on the proposed assignment, that is Appeal Committee, which means the committee constituted in terms of Section 57A2. The gap is that to assist in the interpretation of terms in the Act. The next slide. We also, in the current provision, we are taking into account the definition of natural forest means a group of indigenous trees whose crowns are largely contiguous or which have been declared by the minister to be a natural forest under Section 7.2. The proposed amendment that we are looking for is natural forest means a group of predominantly indigenous trees whose crowns are largely contiguous in its undisturbed state, which may represent any successional stage or state of forest degradation, in which case crowns may not be contiguous. It may also mean those natural forests which occur in association with characteristic plants or animals recognized in vegetation science. Kindly do not the presentation is blurred. Okay, which occur in association with characteristic plants or animals recognized in vegetation science as diagnostic species of a specific natural forest. And the last one is which have been declared by the minister to be a natural forest in accordance with Section 7.2. We intend to broaden the definition of a natural forest, which is the gap that we have identified. The next slide. The next inclusion was the definition of woodlands, which means a group of indigenous trees which are not a natural forest, but whose crowns cover most or more than 5% of the area bounded by the trees forming the perimeter of the group. The proposed amendment is that woodlands means a group of indigenous trees which are not a natural forest, but whose crowns cover more than at least 5% of the area bounded by trees forming the perimeter of the group they occupy, and which may, in a degraded state, have a crown cover of less than 5%. What we are trying to address here, the gap, is to simplify and broaden the definition in order to cater for situations where woodlands may be degraded. The next slide. There's a new insertion here where we are inserting a public trusteeship of the national forest resources in terms of Section 2A. The proposed amendment is that public trusteeship of national forestry resources, the national government as the public trustee of the nation's forestry resources, acting through the minister, must ensure that these resources, together with the land and related ecosystems which they inhabit, are protected, conserved, developed, regulated, managed, controlled, and utilized in a sustainable and equitable manner for the benefit of all persons and in accordance with the constitutional and developmental mandate of government. Okay, the next slide. Then there's a clause amendment to Section 7. The current provision of Section 7, no person may cut, disturb, damage, or destroy any indigenous living tree in or remove or receive any such tree from a natural forest except in terms of a license issued under Section 4 or Section 23. The proposed amendment is cut, disturb, damage, or destroy any indigenous tree. Any other indigenous vegetation in a natural forest and or possesses, collect, remove, transport. We are broadening the issue of Section 7. Transport, export, purchase, sell, donate, or in any other manner acquire or dispose of any tree. So this is the gap that we are trying to plug in. And then the other one under A, or any other indigenous forest vegetation or any product derived. We are extending it to products instead of live trees only. The next slide. Next slide. A new insertion under subsection 5, still on Section 7. We're trying to, if a person is in breach of subsection 1, the minister may, by written notice, inform that person of the breach, of the nature of the alleged breach. They may inform them of steps which the person must take to prevent further damage to redress the said breach and the period within which they must take those steps, in addition to any penalties in terms of Section 63(2). We are trying to provide for the direction to rectify or to give teeth to the section in terms of any breaches. Next slide. The next slide, the new insertion deals with if a person failed to comply with the directive within the period determined under subsection 5B, Roman figure 2, the minister may take reasonable steps to remedy the situation, to recover consequential damage or cost from the person concerned, or approach a competent court for relief. So the gap here, we're trying to provide for the steps taken in order to ensure that non-compliance is reduced or as derived from Section 7(5). Next slide. There's a new insertion under subsection 8(3), which deals with a person may not conduct any activity in a protected area which is inconsistent with the conservation, recreation, or any other management objectives of that area, except under a license issued by the minister in exceptional circumstances that may be determined by the minister. We are trying to prohibit any activity in protected areas in terms of this insertion. The next slide. There's now an amendment to Section 14, subsection 6, which deals with the minister may issue a written order to immediately terminate the felling, that is the cutting, the mutilation or destruction of an individual tree or group of trees if he or she has reasonable grounds to believe that such a tree or a group of trees may qualify to be declared as A, protected in accordance with Section 12A, and then B, until such time that a notice in this regard is publicized in the Gazette in accordance with Section 14(2). B, a controlled forest area in accordance with Section 17. The gap here is to provide minister with powers to stop or terminate any activities that relates to cutting of trees that may need to be protected while we are still conducting investigations. Next slide. The next slide deals with an amendment to Section 15, subsection 3. The minister, the current provision of the Principal Act, the Minister must publish A list of all species protected under Section 12, an appropriate warning of the prohibition referred to in subsection 1 and the consequences of its infringement annually in Gazette and in 2 newspapers circulating nationally. What we are proposing is that the Minister must, by notice in Gazette and in 2 newspapers circulating nationally, publish an appropriate warning of the prohibition referred to in subsection 1 and the consequences infringement at least every 5 years, or publish a change that has been effected in the list contemplated in paragraph A in the Gazette and in 2 newspapers circulating nationally. We're trying to minimize cost for compliance promotion incurred annually through publication or declared national list of protected trees. The next slide. There's an amendment to Section 16.1. The current Principal Act deals with a particular tree or group of trees or woodland to be protected under Section 12A. The Minister may request the Registrar of Deeds for the area to make an appropriate note. The proposed amendment, where the Minister has declared a particular tree or group of trees, woodland or a state forest or part thereof to be protected under Section 12A and 8 respectively. We're trying to provide for registration with Deeds Office when a state forest or part of it has been declared to be protected, in this case, honorable members. The next slide. Next slide. Thank you very much. Another amendment is in relation to Section 17.2, which deals with, in the Principal Act now, if the Minister is of the opinion that urgent steps are required to rehabilitate a natural forest or a woodland protected under Section 12, which is threatened with deforestation or has been deforested, he or she may declare it a. The proposed amendment, if the Minister is of the opinion that urgent steps are required to rehabilitate a natural forest or woodlands which is threatened or is being deforested, he or she may declare it a controlled forest area. The next slide. We also looking to amend Section 17 with new insertions. The proposed amendment, Section 17, subsection 13C, the Minister may declare a controlled forest area, and due to the urgency of the situation, the Minister may proceed with the declaration without prior consultation with or affording a prior hearing to any affected person, but as soon as reasonably possible after the declaration contemplated in Section 17.3. The Minister must consult with and afford a hearing to any affected person. Roman figure 2, Minister must consider any representations received during such consultation or hearing. And Roman figure 3, the Minister must confirm, vary or cancel the declaration consent. Sorry, honorable members, it's the last Roman figure 3 is on a shaded area. I was struggling to read it. The gap here is to provide the Minister with emergency powers to declare controlled forest area in order to prevent continued deforestation. For an example, most of the time the forest is deforested prior to declaration due to process being lengthy. So we are trying to say, even if we are still following the process, the Minister may be allowed to declare, to prevent further deforestation. The next slide. We have another addition that is in terms of subsection 17.14. There's a new insertion. It deals, if the Minister is of the opinion that the owner failed to comply with the notice issued in terms of subsection 3 and 4, he may, she He or she may take reasonable steps to remedy the situation, to recover consequential damages or cost from the owner or person concerned, or approach a competent court for appropriate relief. We're trying to provide the minister with powers to issue a directive in case of non-compliance. The next slide. It deals with, to insert new subsection, that is subsection 23(4). It deals with no person may engage in any prospecting or mining activity in a state forest except in terms of A, an existing lease agreement or any other valid contract, or B, an applicable legislation. The gap that we are trying to address here is to prohibit mining activities in state forests in order to promote sustainability within the forest. Honorable members, we are all aware that we are steadily losing forestry land and agricultural land to other land uses, and mining is one of them. This is how we are trying to protect state forest land. The next slide. We seek to amend Section 34. Section 34 deals with, we want to add the youth and women. This in line with the opening remarks by the chairperson. The Principal Act was silent on some of this inclusion, honorable members. We're trying to include youth and women in the council, the National Advisory Council, that is constituted by the Act to advise the minister. Next slide. Amendment to Section 35(4). The current provision, members of the council are members of a committee of the council who are not in the full-time employment of the state and may be paid for their services except for attending council meetings. The proposed amendment, Section 35(4), members of the council and members of a committee. The committees of the council referred to in Section 30 who are not in the full-time employment of the state may be paid for their services except for attending council meetings. We are trying to make sure that those who are appointed to the National Advisory Council are paid. This we're trying to include both committees of Sustainable Forest Management and Forest Access. Next slide. This amendment to Section 35(4). The current provision in terms of the minister must determine the remuneration and allowance payable to members of the council and members of a committee of the council with the consent of the Minister of Finance. The proposed amendment is that the minister must determine the remuneration and allowance payable to members of the council, including those of the subcommittees. We are trying to address the issue of remunerating National Forest Advisory Council members when attending council meetings with this amendment to this section. Next slide. Amendment to Section 36, which deals with the functions of Committee on Forest Access, are to advise the minister on. These are the proposed amendment. The functions of the Committee of the Forest Access are to advise the council, department, and the minister on. So we provide for the committees of the forest access to advise the council and the department, not only the minister. The next slide. This is the amendment to Section 37, subsection 3. The chairperson of the council must provide the minister with advice on information emanating from any meeting within 2 weeks. The proposed amendment is that the chairperson of the council must provide the minister with advice on information emanating from any meetings. So we're trying to provide for the extension of the time period that the council needs to advise the minister on, especially on issues emanating from the meetings of the council. The next slide. This is an amendment to Section 47, subsection 1. The current provision, the minister may assign any power or duty in this act to a province or any organ of state. And I guess that is why today we have honorable members from provinces, because this bill is rural. It affects everyone, including the rural constituencies. The minister, in terms of the proposed amendment, may assign any power or duty in this act to a province or other, an organ of state in accordance with Section 99 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. We're trying to ensure that the provisions of Section 47, which deals with assignment of powers and duties in the Principal Act, are done in accordance with Section 99 of the Constitution of our country. The next slide. There's an insertion in Section 57A. The new insertion, we are inserting the following proposals: 57A, the right of appeal; 57B, composition and membership of appeal committee; 57C, vacancies in appeal committee; 57D, investigation and consideration of appeal by appeal committee; 57E, consideration of appeal by minister. The gap here is to provide for appeal procedure against decision taken by a delegated officer, e.g. issuing of a license by a forest officer. The current Principal Act was very silent. There were no provision for appeals. The next slide. Amendment to Section 58, subsection 6, which deals with a person who is guilty of a fifth category offense referred to in Section 61, may not be sentenced to imprisonment, but may be sentenced to a fine up to not exceeding 50,000. The proposed amendment, which is contained in Section 58(6), a person who is guilty of a fifth category offense referred to in Section 51 may be sentenced to a fine not exceeding 10 million or imprisonment for a period of up to 10 years or both fine and such imprisonment. Honorable members, here we're trying to strengthen our enforcement and to make sure that we deter non-compliance with the provisions of the Act. We keep on experiencing non-compliance in the face of climate change, where we know full well that forest and forest-related products are your carbon sink, and they are very instrumental and crucial to the environment. The next slide. We have an amendment of Section 58, subsection 8B, which deals with, for any offense in terms of this Act, may suspend or revoke a license granted to the offender under Section 7 or 23. The proposed amendment, for any offense in terms of this Act, may suspend or revoke license granted to the offender under Section 7, 15, or 23. We're trying to strengthen enforcement again here, which previously was dealt with under Section 15 in terms of protected trees, which was excluded in the Principal Act. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. Then there is an amendment to Section 61, which deals with any person who fails to take the steps which he or she has been instructed to take in terms of Section 4.8 within the period or the extended period laid down is guilty of a fifth category offense relating to protection of forest and trees. The proposed amendment is any person who fails to take the steps which he or she has been instructed to take in terms of Section 4.8, Section 7, subsection 5, Section 8, subsection 3, Section 14, subsection 6, and Section 17, subsection 3, within the period or extended period laid down, is guilty of in respect of non-compliance with instructions to both Section 7, subsection 5, 14, subsection 6, and Section 17, subsection 3 of the Act. Next slide. We have an amendment to Section 62(1)(3), which deals with to strengthen enforcement, ensure that amended provisions under Section 7 are catered for. The proposed amendments are in terms of Section 62(1), 2, C, and Roman figure 1, and subsection 3. 62(1). Any person who contravenes the provision of certain acts in relation to trees, indigenous vegetation, or any other forest products in natural forests referred to in Section 7(1) is guilty of a first category offense. We are doing this in order to strengthen enforcement, ensure that the amended provisions are also catered for. The next slide. Thank you very much. The amendment still relates to Section 62, subsection 1(3). Any person who contravenes a prohibition of any other provision in a notice declaring controlled forest area under Section 17(3) and subsection 4 is guilty of a second category offense relating to the use of forest. The proposed amendment: any person who contravenes a prohibition or any other provision in a notice declaring a controlled forest area under Section 17, subsection 3, and subsection 4 is guilty of first category offense. Once again, honorable members, we have been observing the non-compliance and, citizens not taking the provisions of the Act seriously. We're trying to strengthen the enforcement part of the Act. The next slide. It's amendment of Section 63. Any person who contravenes a condition in a license, exemption, or other authorization in terms of this Act in any protected area is guilty of a second category offense. B deals with in any other forest is guilty of a third category offense. The proposed amendment: any person who contravenes a condition in a license, exemption, or any other authorization in terms of this Act in respect of A protected area, natural forest, or protected trees is guilty of second category offense. That goes for B as well. So we're also trying to strengthen our enforcement by including the natural forest and protected trees. The next slide. We continue with amendment to Section 65, which deals with number 65A. The Director General may designate posts in the department or in any provincial administration or local authority whose incumbents are forest officers, and B, and appoint any other suitably qualified persons and forest officers. And this also deals with the general powers of forest officers. The proposed amendment, by the addition of the following paragraphs: subsection C, determine different levels of forest officers, and D, determine qualification criteria for forest officers. Now, we're trying to strengthen enforcement by ensuring that the appointment of forest officers can take place whether at local government, and we're also trying to make sure that there are different gradings of forest officers depending on their ranks. Next slide. The implications of the bill, honorable members. The mandate of the National Forest Act as listed in Schedule 4 of the Constitution. This causes the bill to be tagged as a Section 76 bill in terms of the Constitution. The proposed amendments, honourable members, are aimed at strengthening the provisions for promoting sustainable forest management and not to change the current administrative processes of the functional areas listed in Schedule 4. The proposed amendments will not affect the current provincial mandate with regards to management of forests. The Principal Act already has various mechanisms to promote the use of forest for the benefit of all. These have not been affected by the proposed amendments, honourable members. The next slide. Thank you very much, honourable members and Deputy Minister and Acting DG. I think I'll pause here and we will take questions.
Thank you very much, Acting DDG. DM, do you want to add anything before I can give to the members?
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thanks to Acting DDG. I'm sure, Chair, the presentation responded to most of the questions that you alluded to in your opening remark. I also agree with Susan that we'll just wait for the questions from yourself. I have a strong team from the Forest Branch, which is led by DDG Sileke, of which that they will also assist in responding or giving clarity on some of the issues that may be raised by members of Parliament. Thank you very much, Chair.
No, thanks, DG. Now, honourable members, we are going to ask questions, but we are going to follow this route. We are going to take this route. I'm going to call one rep from Eastern Cape, one rep from Western Cape, one rep from Gauteng, Limpopo, Northern Cape, Northwest, KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga will be, from the provinces will be the last one. And I'll call a member of the Select Committee, Honorable Arnold. Can I repeat it again, or you are fine, honorable members from the provinces?
We are fine.
Yes. The first round, the first round it will be 10 members, and then the second round it will be 10 members. All the members, you are going to speak. Let's continue. Eastern Cape.
Yeah.
Okay. Greetings to you, Honorable Chair. Yes, my name is Fundisila Pesa, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee for Rural Development and Agrarian Reform, Eastern Cape. Greetings to you, Honorable Chair. Greetings to all honorable members, as well as the staff at large. I was quite happy when the presenter alluded to the issue of the rural constituencies. If you want to sustain any development, you must put rural constituencies up front. The issue that I'm trying to bring into your attention, Honorable Chair, is the issue of the community forests. Community forests can assist many people, especially in the rural areas, especially during this climate change and disaster. It can also address the issue of a drought, whereby forests in the rural areas can attract rainfall, can also deal with drought by attracting rainfall. Therefore, Honorable Chair, I'm trying to say I commend the presentation. It was quite clear, but I didn't get anything in connection with community forests, which is supposed to be taken to the rural areas. Thanks, Honorable Chair. Thanks very much.
From Western Cape. Honorable member.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. It's Honorable van der Westhuizen. No question at this stage. Thank you.
Honorable member from Free State.
No, thank you, Chair. We are content with the presentation itself. I think it has covered quite a number of areas which we've identified them as gaps. So far, I think it has covered quite a number of areas which were of a great concern to us. My name is Chablan Khadebe, the chair of the committee. Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Khadebe. Honorable member from Gauteng.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. My name is Busisiwe Pinky Mnude, a member of the Portfolio Committee. I have questions in terms of on the natural forest and the protection and the licenses. The Constitution allows the Constitution respects the traditional beliefs, religion, and whatever. So let's say my ancestors are waking me up and say, go to this place and cut what we want and then come back. Are you then saying at that time, how do I apply? How do I apply? So we need to also look into that area of, because we now are like undermining that practice. So it is allowed in terms of the Constitution. So I want to know, to say, would then be regarded as being guilty of transgressed and all those things. I think on the representation in the advisory committee, given what I've just said now, before, I think there is an omission of the people with disabilities. If you insert women and youth, we are leaving out the people with disabilities, maybe also the military veterans. So in the representation, given what I've just said, that we must not be against against the Bill of Rights, where we say we recognize the practice of these people, and when they're supposed to be practicing, then we'll be guilty. So in terms of the advisory, why also not think about the representative of the traditional healers? Because their complaints is that they even go to other countries, Zimbabwe and wherever, because our country has that rigid legislation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Member from Limpopo.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Slamlela, the Chair of the Portfolio Committee. We want to start by commending the work by the Ministry and appreciate and want to say we are clear at this stage in terms of the presentation, and then we're looking forward to participating in the process as it unfolds going down. We want to appreciate with those few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Member from Northern Cape.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I think nobody is speaking well. I think we are not all in the committee is joint. I would just like to welcome the presentation. I think we must all recognize that we only have this one planet, and this bill will help us to protect it. I think we must support the bill. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Member from KwaZulu Natal, KZN.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. My name is Temzo Mshengu, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee from KZN. We perhaps first and foremost, we must welcome the presentation as detailed as it is, believing that we still have to interact with some relevant stakeholders, perhaps as like the case with Gauteng,
we have quite a number of traditional healers who are recognized as stakeholders in the forestry industry, as well as furniture makers and so on. I think we will have to then give our detailed report, having interacted with all the relevant stakeholders and interested parties. But as things stands now, we do welcome the presentation, and we look forward to further consultations with our stakeholders so that we give input to the comprehensive outcome of the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Now we will follow by Bokonibu Pirima, Honorable Chair. Bokonibu Pirima. Northwest. Northwest. Northwest, are you still there? Honorable Nkopane, are you still there? Okay, Northwest, it seems there is a problem. Let's go to Mpumalanga.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. It's Honorable J.J. Kosana, the Chair of Chairs, and the SCOPA Chairperson. Chairperson, we welcome the presentation, and the bill, according to us, is in order, and it addresses so many flaws that we have in the new dispensation. Honorable Chair, I also appreciate the money. I also appreciate the manner in which your bill is presenting the mandates of different stakeholders and the different spheres of government. And I must ask a question, Chair, on the activities in the protected areas. Where do we put traditional activities that are the practice of the traditional leaders, and also of the traditional healers? I should think we need to something that in comment about that. And I must say, Chairperson will participate in the processes as a province and take the matter forward with our constituencies. Thank you very much, and I must thank the DM also to clarify us in the beginning of this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair of Chairs. Honorable Arnold.
Thank you, Chairperson, and let me also thank the department for giving us a brief about the proposed amendments, which is very welcome. Let me just say that in the past, the economic, social, and environmental benefits of forest have been distributed unfairly. That was in the past, and I think it's important that we need to strengthen the bill further with the proposed amendments. And let me just say that it's very welcome that that the proposed amendments will not affect the current provincial mandates. And I think that is an important one that we know, and we are assured that the provinces won't be affected by the proposed amendments. Chairperson, let me just also just say the proposed amendment of section 23(4), and we know the destructive nature of mining in some of our forests, and I think that one is a needed one and a long overdue one. That we need that amendment that no person may engage in any prospective mining activities in forest. Then I just need the department just to give us more info in terms of the powers of the forest of officers in terms of section 65, the amendment there. Just a brief in terms of their powers and the levels of the qualifications and everything that was also put in. I think it was also one of the concerns that was previously raised when the bill went to Parliament, the strengthening of our enforcement I think that is a very important one, but I think the department can just give us a brief in terms of the qualification criteria and the determination of the levels and everything. But I don't have any further questions on it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Arnold. Honorable from Northwest, are you still there? Northwest? Northwest? It seems they are not there. Oh, okay, let me put Honorable Bibi. Honorable Bibi.
Okay, thank you so much, Chair. Greetings to the DM, acting DDG, and also delegation from different provinces, and a special greeting from my province, from KZN. And thank you so much for the detailed presentation. Chair, I've got some questions here whereby I would like to know from the department, public consultation, a bill indicated significant support for improved forestry management, but major distrust of the DAFF forestry management officials. Even people supporting the bill were unhappy with the competency of staff and stated that current legislation is not properly enforced. Then I just want to check with the department, how is it going to plan to improve the implementation of legislation and regulations? Question number 2, Chair, it will be the department inherited the bill from DAFF. Is a public consultation process that has taken place with the bill new, or did DEFF retain past consultation outcomes? Many individuals that responded to the committee's request for the input of the bills stated that there was not sufficient consultation. Point number 3, Chair, there was significant support for the need to expand indigenous forests through reforestation and to limit forestry activity to sustainable levels. Now, how will the department balance these opposing targets? Like as the forestry sector needs to be sustainable, but climate change targets require massive reforestation efforts. Again, Chair, what community upliftment and business development opportunities can the department identify where reforestation efforts are suggested for land belonging to previously disadvantaged communities? Linked to the question above that I've mentioned, how will the department improve on management of commercial forestry projects handed over to previously disadvantaged communities? These were poorly supported and most are failures. It puts the department in a bad light and is part of the reason why management of the forestry department is seen as problematic. I thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Bibi. And now I'll give to Honorable Kathy. Honorable Kathy.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. I would like to know from the department the proposed amendments that we dealt with now. Are those the amendments that has been done by the National Assembly in the 5th Parliament, or are these amendments that the department are proposing at the moment, or is it a mixed presentation. Then on clause 2, the new proposed 2A section, where they are, I would like to know the whole question of trusteeship and public trusteeship, and why actually in the Principal Act there's no uncertainty that the minister is the sole trustee of this act. Some clarity about the board of trustees and the relationship there, because I think when this bill is going out for public participation in provinces, out of the public participation that we got as a committee, there's a little bit of uncertainty around this, and I think it needs to be clarified so that the public understand what they comment on. The same thing with the whole idea of sustainable utilization. We haven't, maybe we should look at what is the bill's intention when the bill speaks about sustainable utilization, because my interpretation of sustainable utilization might be different to somebody else's. Is there a set of criteria? Is there a policy? Is there something in the department that will be able to help the public to understand when they have to comment on sustainable utilization, the same as, and also to the committee. Then on clause section 7, on section 7, it's about this destruction and of indigenous forests and so on. And I would like to know, because that is came from the public participation processes from the NA in the previous term, clarity from the department side. Did they take into consideration the Supreme Court case that in September 2017, and why didn't they take the decisions of the Supreme Court into consideration in the amendment of this clause? Then I just need some clarity myself on amendment section 16 about the whole thing about registration of title deeds and inclusion of protected areas, and that just when this bill is going out to provinces, the way it's been written here, I don't think anybody out there would understand and would be able to give comment on that. Just clarity on what it will mean in real life, that clause. Because I think it will be to the benefit of communities, but they need to understand what the benefit would be and why that clause was brought in. Then also, what did I write here? Sorry, okay. And then section 37, the meetings of the extension of the council included here, the extension of time from 2 weeks to 1 month. I just don't follow that. What does it really mean? So there was a limited time that the council could assist or consult the minister, and now it's been extended to 1 month. Is it really just what I see, or what is the practical implication thereof? And then sustainable forest management. Again, it's the whole bill is one of the aims is to improve sustainable forest management. My question is, within this bill, is there an existing policy within the department to say, when we put all these clauses in, there will be sustainable management? Because you cannot make a law, or in my opinion, it's very difficult to put legislation there and say you have to adhere to this. But when the competency within the department and the staff and all those people in the department who have to oversee this and to make this happen is not there, you can have 700 bills, it won't happen. Somebody else also asked about the appointment of the forest officers. I just want to know at this stage, how many forest officers do we have, and is there a clear sort of a description of their jobs and that kind of thing? Because I personally don't have a problem that there must be various levels. Now, I hear that the presenter said that this bill will make provision that the Director General can ensure that there's forest officers on local government level and all that kind of thing. My problem with this is, in theory, it's wonderful. In practical terms, is local governments have to struggling at the moment with all everything that they have to deal with the budget that they have. After COVID-19, local governments will even struggle more. And then to say that the Director General on a provincial level can decide that local government has to appoint, for instance, 5 people, and this is kind of what they should do, and most probably what the salary scale is. That kind of, will that be a sort of a decision that the Director General takes, and the local government must just adhere to that? Or what kind of powers does the Director General really has in doing so? I think this is for now the first set of questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kathy. Now I'm going to call Honorable Ntube. Honorable Ntube. Honorable Ntube. Not there. Honorable Nana. Honorable Nana.
I'm here, Chairperson.
Yes. Do you have any point, question, clarity?
No, not really, Chair. I think Honorable Labuskachne has largely covered what I wanted to raise. Okay. But Chair, allow me to raise a concern. I know you have made a ruling, but allow me to raise a concern in the manner in which an objection by Honorable Smith was raised. I really do think that it's about time we should be considerate and be welcoming to dissenting views. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Nana. Your point is taken. Honorable Matibe, or before Honorable Matibe, Northwest is back. Northwest? They are not there. Honorable Mzube, you are not there. Honorable Matibe? Honorable Matibe?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairperson, and greetings to you as well as the DM and the department and delegation from our provinces. Firstly, I would like to welcome the presentation by the department. I think it was able to clarify quite a number of issues. I'll just raise some few issues firstly on Section 34. I think in terms of the composition of the council, I fully agree with the view that we need to look into inclusion of quite a number of other stakeholders, because in terms of dealing with the issues of forest, you realize that you have got your traditional leaders, your traditional healers. So if we put youth and women, we must also be considerate of the forest that is under traditional leadership as well. So that is one area that I think we should look into, and I'm sure different provinces have got different setups in terms of stakeholders. They will be able to go and engage on the matter and be able to make inputs. The second issue is on section 47, the assignment of powers. I think is one critical area.
Honorable Matibe, you will come on the next round. Let me give another honorable member. You will come.
Okay.
Okay. Let me give Honorable Smith. Honorable Smith. Honorable Smith. Honorable Smith. Honorable Ntube. Any member from any province who doesn't, who need to do any follow-up again?
Honorable Chair.
Yes, honorable member.
Honorable Pillay from Eastern Cape.
Yes.
Can I ask? Okay. No, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. And like everyone else, we appreciate the report. Just few clarity seeking questions. One on section 32, where a small scale has been given to the communities for farming. And because it's a land issue, is the act or the amendment, is it clarifying clearly that how that proportional land will be distributed? Secondly, on the issue of the farm forest, since the introduction of the bill, always there was that worry about the people living in the farm forest and also the community conserved areas. I think definitely the bill is taking care of that. But somewhere it is actually said that we need to protect the indigenous knowledge systems within that. But there is no much deviation from the Principal Act to the current amendments. Is the Act really covering that area which has been proposed? And lastly, on section 47, where the minister can actually give a competent authority to deal with it. I think this particular item is good enough, but there is also a loophole there, because when the minister is to give, remember that there are three spheres: the national, the municipal, the provincial one. I mean, is the bill explicitly explaining how this will be given out? Because the moment, if it is not thoroughly being explained or well clearly being narrated, there is abuse of power which can lead to the deforestation. Yes, we can see that certain areas of the Act is actually trying to curb on it, but that particular area is not well explained, and we may not get a time to amend soon, because remember, this has been almost 9 years, 7 years. So I think maybe they can give a clarity on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable. Honorable Smith, are you there? Honorable Smith? Honorable Smith? Okay, Honorable Smith is not there. Oh, okay. Honorable Ntube? Oh, okay, let me give
Present.
Hello, ma'am. Honorable Ntube? Honorable Ntube? Can you hear me? Honorable Ntube, do you have any question? Oh, Northwest? Northwest? Honorable Linkopani? Honorable Linkopani? Oh, none. Okay, let me give the last person and then we'll give back to the department. Honorable Matibe? Honorable Matibe?
Honorable Hlongwane.
Oh, okay. Before Honorable Matibe, Honorable Hlongwane.
Yes, Chairperson.
Yes, Honorable Hlongwane.
Yes, I just wanted to say that as a SALGA, we are equally going to participate. Hello?
Honorable Mr. Hlongwane, I'm so sorry. I was about to give the SALGA. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes, you are welcome. You can pose a question because as the NCOP, we are doing oversight on province, national, and local. That's why you are welcome to be part and parcel of our meeting. I'm so sorry.
No. Thank you so much, Chairperson. As a SALGA, we welcome the presentation, and we are also going to input in terms of what has been presented today. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Hlongwane, Honorable from SALGA, Honorable Matibe. It's your time now.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. The other item that I wanted to input on is on the assignment of powers. I think is welcomed. I think what will be important is that whenever there is an assignment of power to either province or local government level, it must also be accompanied by the funds so that whatever assignment of powers must not be an unfunded mandate to another sphere of government. I think it's one area that I think we should also be able to look into. The issue of forest officers, Chairperson, I think we welcome it. Like it is also, if it is to be assigned to local government level or the province, national must be able to not only assign powers but also assign resources that will also cater for that. The last issue that I want to contribute on is on public participation after our engagement and the report that we received. I think we should be able to look into the way in which we deal with that public participation so that we are not found wanting in terms of the law in relation to public participation, bearing in mind the Mamusa judgment. I think is one area that we will need to look into it to say, how do we assist our provinces to reach different stakeholders? How, as the community, do we ensure that indeed participation happens before we finalize the report? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Matibe. Honorable Ntume, I can see you are in the meeting. Do you have any question? Can you, Honorable Ntume?
Honorable Chairperson.
Yes.
No, not have any question. No, not have any question, Honorable Chairperson.
Oh, you are covered.
Yes.
Thanks. Honorable Ntume. Honorable Ngwenya. Ngwenya. Honorable Ngwenya. Honorable Ngwenya. She's struggling. Now, she will come maybe with a follow-up question. Let me give back to the department, Honorable Deputy Minister and your team.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thanks very much to the members of Parliament and the provincial delegates for the comments and the support, especially on issues that has to do with empowerment, as raised by Honorable Bibi. I have taken note of most of the things that have been raised, especially with the composition of the National Advisory Council that has to do with the forest, national forest, and advising of both the minister and deputy minister with regard to forestry in the country. Chairperson, I will then ask the acting GDG to respond to some of the questions that has been raised, and also maybe during her response, she must also try to explain on the issue of the management of the forest, especially as per the white paper of 1996, to address some of the weaknesses. We know that there are some organizations that has been given a mandate to do with issues of management of the forest. Your MTO, your SAPI, your Mondi, your SAFCOL, your Amatole, of which she will also then explain the role that we are playing as the department. Chair, I then give over to my team. DDG, I know you are not alone. You have some of the officials that deals mainly with this area, especially on issues that has been raised by members. I'm expecting then you to assist them in trying and respond to most of the questions and that has been raised by members and yourself, Chairperson. Thank you very much, Chair. Can I request Messilege then to respond to some of those questions?
Honorable Chair, DM.
Yes.
Honorable DM, it's Isham Abada, the acting DG.
Okay.
Chair, I know ministers asked that Susan and her team respond to the questions. We have been having a bit of difficulty in terms of our connection. So some of the questions we may not have caught all of the questions. So I'm going to ask Susan to please respond to the questions that she did manage to note, Chair. The ones that she didn't note, Chair, can we request that we do a written response to the committee with regard to those questions, please, Chair?
No, thanks. You must do that so that even the provincial legislatures, they must receive those questions, answers.
The state forest.
Thank you, Chair. Susan?
Susan?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Thank you, DG and Deputy Minister. Our sincerest apology, we couldn't get some of the questions, but we will try our level best. Let me start with the issue of which the Deputy Minister mentioned about the management of commercial plantations. Some of the commercial plantations, honorable members, that we see across the country have been leased out to the private sector. Some in 1991. So the state is left with certain plantations which we are still managing. But I will go straight to the questions that were raised. The questions, honorable members, we appreciate them because they begin to demonstrate the interest and the importance of this bill. And this is not the first time. As you would have seen when we were presenting, the process followed. We started in 2012. What we are observing is that honorable members have so much interest in this bill, and we have even told ourselves that we are not going to rush anything. That is why there has been the reconsultation at the request of the portfolio committee members and at times by the NCOP. So the first question that I noted was, it was not a question by Honorable Arnold, the issue of the destruction of forest. Yes, we are taking a strong stance with the proposals. The second issue was the powers of the forest officers in terms of Section 66. The powers of the forest officers will be outlined in the regulations. We've got the old regulations, but now that we are proposing these amendments, we're going to also enhance or beef up the powers so that they're in line with the current bill. There was a comment from the honorable member from Northwest in terms of the public consultation that took place during the time of the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. The question was, how are we going to improve the implementation of the legislation? Honorable members, if you have noted, we are trying to strengthen the part of enforcement, which has not been the case in the past. We would legislate, we would put forward these good legislations, but we have been not putting much emphasis on the compliance and enforcement. And with these amendments, we are trying to strengthen that. There was a question as to whether did we retain the previous consultations, but I could not get the end of it. Yes, we did retain them, and some of the amendments that we have inserted include those that were proposed by the National Assembly and those that the departments, saw it fit based on the experiences that we have on the ground. There was the issue of, is there a policy on sustainable utilization? Honorable members, it's a global phenomenon. When you talk of sustainable utilization, we're simply referring to the fact that the forest should not only be a jungle, it should meet the following criteria. It should be economic. It should also make sure that socially it can benefit the people, and it must be environmentally, beneficial. Those are the three principles of sustainable utilization. We thank you, Honorable Labaskachen, for the question on did we take into consideration the Supreme Court as of September 2017. We'll look into that. For now, I cannot say whether we have taken that into consideration. There was also, most of the honorable members made reference to the composition of the National Forestry Advisory Council. Honorable members, what used to happen is that in the previous council, normally the term of office for the advisory council is 3 years. In the previous term, we had traditional leaders, but we do take a note of the proposal by honorable members to include people with disabilities, to include the military veterans, to include the traditional healers and traditional leaders. I must say, in terms of, there was a question from Gauteng, in terms of the composition, to say, do we cater for the use of medicinal? There are different uses in terms of Section 19, uses of forest. It could be for religious, for traditional, for medicinal, and recreational. It's many uses. And maybe what we should be doing is making sure that communities are aware of all the different uses of forests. Sorry for the silence. I am trying to check some of my questions that I could manage to grab. There was the issue from the honorable member from Northwest about how do we balance reforestation and deforestation. The department has got a program that we call greening. When we do greening, it's trees outside your commercial forest. When we talk reforestation, is what happens in a commercial setup. It involves the art of planting commercial trees. But what we are doing to augment or to balance is to do greening. This we normally do every year. We just heighten our activities around September, and that is why across all provinces we then have what we call the Arbor Month, where we are just saying this is how far we've come as a department in terms of planting trees. We know that it's not only about planting trees. We have tweaked our strategy for greening to include fruit trees, because we were cognizant of the fact that we need to advance the issue of food security. I am not alone. I am with my colleagues here who will assist where I might have skipped some of the question because of the connectivity problems. I will hand over to Pumeza. Pumeza.
Umezam? Seems you have a problem. Honorable Acting DG.
Honorable Chair.
Oh yes.
Honorable Chair.
Yes.
We are back online, Pumeza.
Pumeza, yes. Continue, Pumeza.
Thank you, Chairperson. Oh, goodness. Good morning to the Deputy Minister. Good morning to the honorable members. Good morning to the acting DG. I need another paper there. Just to maybe deal with the issue of our role as a department to the plantations that we have listed out to the 4 companies. What we do on a day-to-day basis is to look at the lease agreement that they have signed, and then look at how they are dealing with the management of the forest in the lease agreement, and then we do the monitoring based on those undertakings that are listed in the lease agreement. In this regard, what we try and do is to make sure that each and every year we go out and check if the areas that they are managing, they are still managing them in the right manner. So we would then do records of that and redo the mappings if there's a need to remap, and also make sure that they do consult with the communities that are around them. I think, Chairperson, the other issue was related to how the National Forest Advisory Council, we are trying to increase the time for them to respond to the minister after their meetings, because we realized that in the past years, when the council meets, because they are engaged in the other institutions, and because they are nominated in most cases by different institutions and organizations, or by say a group of small growers, because sometimes they have to go back and get information from the people from their constituencies, then they would need more time to try and make sure that whatever they are discussing and they have agreed on is in line with what the people they are representing would want. And then so that when they write to the minister, it's a response to the minister that is beefed up, but also that represents the people that they are representing. So 2 weeks was just a bit of a problem, because then they would fail in terms of complying with that part of the legislation. I don't know what else have we not covered.
The issue of the grading of forest officers and their powers.
She referred to that.
Okay.
Yeah, she has referred to that. Okay. Chair, I think we have covered almost all the issues, but as the acting DDG has indicated, what we will do is the other issues that we haven't managed to capture correctly, we request that we do a formal write-up that will then try and address those. Thank you very much.
Chairperson?
Honorable Kathy?
Chairperson, with your permission and indulgence, can the DG maybe, did they hear the question on the public trusteeship?
What was the question?
Can we, because
Remember,
yes,
Honorable Kathy?
Sorry, Chair, the reason why I think we need clarity on this is before the bill goes out to the provinces, I think there's a understanding of certain, or there might be a misunderstanding or a different interpretation from the public side, and maybe it will be good for us to have the department's idea of what a board of trustees or that kind of things are, so that when the public comment, we can explain to them beforehand. So otherwise, a lot of information will come in, and it will be, we won't be able to utilize it. Thank you.
Honorable
Thank
Chairperson.
Honorable, yes, ma'am.
Honorable Chairperson, if Honorable Labaskachn can repeat the question on trusteeship, please.
Honorable Kathy.
Okay. Now, I'm asking and say that in the new clause, the new 2A, where there's also, we put out the bill in December, as you've seen, for public comment. And a lot of people raised issues around public trusteeship, that they don't trust it, and what does it exactly entails, and that kind of thing. So my question is just to clarify from the department's side is, what do you see, how it's been working at the moment, but how this clause will change that, and what kind of improvement you think from the department side this clause will in the end result in?
Hello, did you get the question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. We're trying to look up in the presentation, the 2A that the honorable member is referring to, so that we can respond.
Maybe I can assist, Honorable Chairperson. I must admit that I'm not an expert on the bill or on the functions of the forestry branch. But what the amendment proposes, Honorable Chair, is that the national government is the public trustee of the nation's forestry resources. Are you hearing me, Chair?
Hear you, acting DG.
Okay, and then the minister acting on behalf of the government has to then ensure that the resources, the forestry resources, together with the land and the related ecosystems which they inhabited, are protected, conserved, developed, regulated, managed, controlled, and used in a sustainable and equitable manner for the benefit of all persons and in accordance with the constitutional and developmental mandate of government. So I think the idea is that it makes it peremptory for the minister to ensure that the resources are protected and that all the land and the related ecosystems also are protected, conserved, and so forth. But it places that responsibility specifically on government through the minister to actually ensure that the constitutional as well as the developmental mandate of government is carried out. I don't know if that gives you enough clarity, Honorable Labuskaghni.
Okay.
Chairperson, through you, exactly. Now, what I'm trying to get to is, when this bill went out on public participation, people will know more about forestry and bills than I know. Interpret this as there must be one kind of form of trusteeship, although the minister is the trust, the sole trustee, and it's the responsibility of government to make sure that all those things that you've read there is there. But how is it going to be done? Will that be solely in the hands of officials, or will there be boards of trustees or that kind of thing? And that is what this is unclear, because it's impossible for the minister and all the staff in the department to control each and everything on grassroots level. So what kind of form of management or structures are they going to be to make sure that this is happening? Now, the public just interpret that as there will be a form of public trusteeship. We need to clarify this to them when the bill is going out to the provinces, so that they have the right idea. Otherwise, we're going to sit with pages and pages of comments that we're not going to use.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Kathy. because we are dealing with a legislation, we have our legal advisors here. Can the legal advisors from National Parliament and from other provinces, can you assist us? This is a legislation. We must have clarity on it. From the department, legal team, legal advisor team.
Thank you, Chair. It's Linda Caleb. I'm the Chief Director for law reform from the Department of Environmental. Chief, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Linda Caleb. I'm the Chief Director for law reform and policy coordination from the Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries. The principle of trusteeship is not uncommon. We have it also in the Biodiversity Act, and it is how our acting DG described it. It's more how government and the minister, when they exercise the function, they must remember to help the nation's forestry resources. They are given the trusteeship over the nation's forestry resources. So it's more how you exercise your powers and functions in terms of the Act. It doesn't require a trust to be created, but it's more how we exercise our function measured against this principle that is introduced in the Act. We find it also in the Biodiversity Act, in the National Environmental Law, the National Environmental Management Act, and in other international legislation. So it's quite a common provision to have in terms of natural resources. But it's about the measure, how you exercise your powers, your functions in terms of the Act, rather than the creation of a physical trust with members or trustees and everything else.
Thank you, legal advisor. Now, department, are you fine? You have answered the questions?
Chairperson?
I feel, Honorable Kathy?
There's only one last one, and that is also just for clarity. The section on the title deeds and I have to go back now there. I raised that and maybe they didn't hear it. Amendment of section 16, registration against title deeds and that kind of. Just give us a little bit of an explanation what practical level that will what does it mean?
Yes, thank you, Honorable Kathy.
Thank you.
Honorable members, before I go back to the honorable members, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks a lot, Chair.
Do you have anything to add?
No, Chair, I don't have anything to add. I think my team has tried their best to respond to most of the questions that has been raised by members. I also agree that if there are some questions that they couldn't then hear when they were posed to them, it will be better if that questions can be in a written form, because it's not going to help when they say that they are going to give responses in a written form if they did not hear the questions. So it's better if they've given the questions so that they can respond in a written form. But otherwise, Chairperson, thank you very much. I think everything that they responded to is what I had on my side.
Okay. Honorable members, do you have any follow-up questions? Honorable members?
Chair.
Honorable members from the provinces, do you have any follow-up Yes, Honorable, I noted you, Honorable Kathy. Honorable members from the provinces, do you have any follow-up questions?
No, Chair, because we are covered.
We are covered okay. Honorable members from NCOP, do you have any follow-up except I noted Honorable Kathy? Honorable Kathy?
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, I'm back to a question that has been answered. I just want to make sure, and then I would ask the chairperson that the committee deliberate around about that when we're done with the presentation. And that is the question, and the department said yes. I asked a question whether these amendments are the amendments that came from the National Assembly as they accepted that, and or if it is a mixture of amendments as the Assembly accepted that, and new amendments, proposed amendments from the department, and she said yes. I just want to make sure that I do understand that correctly. Is that a mixture, or is it only the bill as it has been amended by the NA? And then we can deliberate on the processes forward in the committee.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Kathy.
Chairperson?
Yes, ma'am.
With your permission, it's Phumelele Ngema, the legal advisor from Parliament.
Yes, legal advisor.
Perhaps may I just take the last question and maybe add something on the other one in respect to trusteeship?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
The first question, Chairperson, I'd like to address is the one in relation to the processes and the content and the extent of the bill. The bill that is supposed to be before the committee is the B version, which means it's the bill that has taken into the proposals and the suggestions and amendments that were dealt with in the portfolio committee and passed and adopted by the National Assembly. So it's supposed to be the B version, which will be B11B of 2016. That means all the proposals that were proposed by the portfolio committee have been inputted into the bill and have been passed by the first house. And then, Chairperson, in respect of the second question that I asked to dip into, in respect of the measures that perhaps the minister follows when looking into the issues of trusteeship. I know in the portfolio committee, we did address an example using the Ingonyama Trust and the act thereof. There are a number of trusts that others are legislatively established or others are established as per agreements. For an example, if you look at Section 45 of the Principal Act, there is another method in which the minister could be utilizing into looking into the issues around trustees and trusteeship. And I hope that does bring some assistance, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, legal advisor. Honorable Kathy.
Sorry, Chair. Thank you very much. I think that helps a lot from the legal advisor on the trusteeships, and the process she explained about the B bill is the process how I do understand it. Although the member from the department said when I raised the question, and I said, is it new proposals as well as amended proposals? She did say yes. And the reason why I'm asking this is we all know that this bill has been with the Department of DAF and is now with and Fisheries came over to the Department of Environment. We just have to make sure, because this bill has been around for quite some time, that we don't mix up some processes in the NCOP. So if there are new proposals from the department side, we need to know that so that we can sort out how to handle that. So I know this is the process, but we as the committee members sitting here, I did not receive the bill, the B format of the bill, with the letter or the memo that's normally coming from the NA and say, This is the format of the B bill, and we've amended the following sections. We got this from you in the department this morning, and I trust that you're saying, but this is my job. This is what I have to ask as a member of parliament, taking the responsibility to give input in this process. So can we then please get the B format of the bill and the referral from the NA saying what they amended? Thank you.
Members, I think for now, every member, all of you, you are fine with questions. What I will ask here from the department, because some questions were not answered, Honorable Deputy Minister, I will request the department to write the answers and bring back to the committee, not later than next week, Tuesday, so that we can send all the answers and questions to the provincial legislature, to SALGA, so that they must be able to deal with this bill. So, Deputy Minister, I hope you have heard all the questions, but I'll request from our secretariat, Mr. Aska and Mr. Kuobas, you must assist with questions, because some of the questions the department didn't get them. You must assist and give all the questions to the department. And again, I'll ask the provinces or the members of the select committee, if they still have questions, they must put in writing and send to Honorable, Mr. Kuobas and Aska, so that they must send to the department for getting the answers from them. I hope I'm understandable, Honorable Deputy Minister.
Yes, Chairperson, we do understand. That's why I said it's better if we can get a written questions. The ones that the members say they're in, my team said that they're in here, so that we can respond accordingly. Chair, can I just say something on the issue that has been raised by Kathleen? Is that MP Kathleen? Yeah, I'm just reading on my screen. Yeah, on my screen. Yeah, with regard to what she raised about what has been the input or what has been agreed upon by the National Assembly versus the NCOP. I'm trying to remember now myself as I had an opportunity of chairing a committee for 10 years. I know that the role of the NCOP is not just to endorse everything that comes from NA. They have a responsibility to scrutinize the legislation, so that if there are issues that they don't agree with them, sometimes you'll hear that legislator JJ will remind me. I think when I was the chair of this committee, JJ was
yes.
one of my, there were some there were some of the issues that we used to insert as NA, and the NA would agree upon, but when they came to the NCOP, and the NCOP will then say, no, we don't agree with 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they send the legislation back. I just want to attend to the issue that has been raised. I'm trying to understand, we are not just going to endorse what the NA has agreed upon. It's our responsibility and role as members of the NCOP to make sure that everything that is contained in that piece of legislation is what we think that is going to be implementable when it comes to the provinces. I just wanted to raise that, Chair, that if we come across something, even if that something has been endorsed by the NA, the NCOP has got powers to send that legislation back in order for it to be corrected. Thank you, Chairperson.
Chairperson, if I may, please. Chairperson. Chairperson, are you hearing me?
Hello?
Chairperson, are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm sorry, I cannot, I don't know, my network, it was bad, but now I'm back.
No problem, Chairperson. Chairperson, we note you've given us until next week, Tuesday, but you haven't given an indication in terms of when the final questions will be submitted to the department. You've asked members to submit additional questions and also for the Secretariat to send the questions to us. Can you give an indication when that will happen, Chair, so we can just plan in terms of when we have to respond, Chair? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Acting DG. What I'll say, the questions must be sent to the department from today until, what is the date today? Tuesday. What is the, is it Tuesday? Yeah, today is Tuesday. We are giving members until tomorrow afternoon. Members?
You have to play by the rules. Trivializing the rules.
Very true. We've got it.
We are giving members until tomorrow afternoon. They must submit
Yeah,
questions.
agreeable, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you, Honorable. Now, let me take this opportunity to thank the department. But before I thank the department and the DG and the DM, I would like to emphasize this issue. You must not forget the issues that was raised by other members from other provinces. To include the leaders, traditional leadership, to include the traditional leaders, to include women and people living with disabilities. You must not forget to include them. And then the issues of time frame for the forest officers before it can get out to the community or where. The committee must be given an opportunity to see the powers. What are the powers to those officials? And then, Deputy Minister, I want to tell you, I want to ask you for this trust, because there are a lot of trust that government have established. But at the end of the day, government establish those trusts, but they don't monitor, and then they don't check whether all what is happening there, is it aligned with the legislation? Please make sure that you monitor them from time to time. We don't want to see it failing like other trusts or misusing funds or misusing powers. So that's what we are asking you to do, Deputy Minister. Monitoring is very important. With these few words, I would like to thank all the provincial legislatures rep, all the department led by the acting DG, and to thank the Deputy Minister and all honorable members for the Select Committee for participating in this meeting. It was for the first time we hold such a meeting, but fortunately it went well. I didn't expect that, because it's for the first time to expect that a meeting will be able to reach consensus or will be able to reach everybody from the province, rural, and from the local to national. And members from SALCA, you are welcome also to ask questions. Submit your questions to Mr. Bawa by tomorrow afternoon. You are welcome. Thank you very much, ministers and the provincial legislatures and the department URLs.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Thanks a lot.
I request the members to remain. The member of
Thank
the
you,
committee
Chairman.
remain for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Members for the select committee, you are requested to remain for 10 minutes. The department, please leave the meeting without any noise. Department and all the provinces, leave the meeting without making any noise. Aska, how many members did they? Oh, we are still 54. It means we still
Yes,
have.
Chair. We're just waiting for everybody to leave.
We still have the members of the provincial legislatures. We are 52 now, I can see.
Yeah, we're just waiting for everybody to leave.
Okay.
Excepting the committee members.
Members, can we allow members of the committee? Yes. 46, 45, 4. Members of department, can you leave? Please. Well, members, can you leave with, please?
Chairperson, why can't the host of the meeting just not mute everyone here on the group? We are hearing voices.
Aska?
I just muted everybody. And I'm removing people that don't belong to the committee.
Okay, I didn't know Honorable Smith because I've seen a cap. I didn't know him. Oh, Honorable Smith, you have changed. Cap. Okay. Okay.
Yes, Chair.
Oh, I didn't know. I was about to say, please, Honorable Member, leave us. Not knowing that.
No, you can't chase me away.
No, I didn't know because of the cap. Because of the cap. Sorry, Honorable Smith.
Yeah. The sun is burning us, yeah.
Oh, the sun. Okay, no, I understand. Honorable members, is it only the members of the committee now and the support staff? We are 18. Aska?
I'm going through the list, Ma.
Aska?
There's still some people from outside. I'm removing them.
Remove them quickly. We don't have time now.
All right.
Just remove them.
They've been removed.
Okay, we are 16. 15. Can we start? Are you sure it's only the members of the committee? Ne?
Correct, and officials.
And the officials. Okay. Honorable members? Honorable members?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair. There's someone speaking in the background, but we can hear you.
Can you mute your mic, please, members, so that we must not hear the background. Okay, thank you. Now, members, I request us to adopt them. And before that, before we adopting, did the members receive the minutes for the 22 of May?
Yes,
did the
Chair.
members receive?
Yes.
And then the minutes for the 26?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay. Now I put in front of you the minutes for the 22 for adoption. The minutes for the 22 for adoption, members.
I move for adoption, Chairperson.
Honorable Matibe move for adoption. Any seconder?
Lindy Nana seconds, Chair.
Thank you, honorable members Lindy, Nana, and Honorable Matibe. And then the minutes for the 22 have adopted. Honorable members, I put in before you the minutes of the 26th of May for
Chairperson.
adoption.
Chairperson.
Yes, honorable.
Can you just take note of my apology for that meeting, please? The 26th.
Oh, okay.
Can you just note my apology for that meeting, please?
Oh yeah, Aska. Aska.
I was
Yes.
in another meeting.
Okay, I will amend, so it's adopted with amendments, no problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Now I put in front of you the minutes of the 26th for adoption, members. Honorable members.
I move, Chair.
Honorable Matibe move. Any seconder? Any seconder?
I don't know whether I was there. Mike.
I was not there, so I can't second.
I'm not quite sure whether was I there.
No, I'm not sure. I'm
Was
not
I
sure.
there?
Let me check the minutes. Aska?
Ms. Mangwenya, Mr. Matibe, Ms. Modise, Ms. Labuskaghni, Mr. Klute.
Okay.
Mambibi.
Oh, okay.
Mambibi was apology. Mambibi was an apology.
I remember. Hey, guys, there's so many things.
Mr. Matibe, Mamudise, Ms. Labuskaghni, Mr. Klute can second it.
I second Honorable Matibe.
Good.
Thanks, honorable members. We have adopted both set of the minutes. Now we must don't forget to write questions for today's meeting to ask for tomorrow.
Chairperson, there's still the report, the budget vote report from DMRE to be adopted.
Chairperson, before that, can you give me a minute, please?
Yes, Honorable Nana.
Honorable Nana. Yeah, thanks. Through you, Chairperson.
Yes.
I don't recall me being absent in last week's meeting, and from what I can gather from Afghan, my name doesn't appear on the list of names.
Okay, I will add it, and it will also be adopted with amendments. No problem.
Aska, I know, even myself, I know that Honorable Nana is always in the meeting.
He was.
Yeah, please.
Thank you very
much. When you write the minutes, you must be careful because sometimes you will miss a member. So you must not do that. Next time, make sure that you capture everything. Okay? The report for the minerals 22. The report for the 22nd, Oscar.
Yes, Chair.
It was on the 22nd. The report for the minerals I put in front of you for adoption. I propose for, I put in front of you for adoption, members.
Chairperson, I'm not sure. I think there is one meeting that I could not attend. I'm not sure is this one or that other one.
No, Mr. Matibe, you were part of
it. Yes, I move the Chairperson.
Okay, Honorable Matibe move. Any seconder?
I second.
Umam Bibi was there on the 22nd?
That's correct.
Oh.
Okay, I second.
Oh, the report is adopted.
Yep.
Anything that is remaining, Askam?
No, Chair, we are up to date.
We're up to date.
Chairperson?
The only thing that is remaining is question for tomorrow, ne?
Chairperson?
Honorable Kathy?
Yes, Chairperson. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I can
Yes,
hear you, ma'am.
Chairperson, there's still a request. I would like to get the report from on the B bill as we received it from the NA, because I heard the input that we as the NCOP are here to change the bill, that is to amend the bill. That's absolutely correct. But I don't want us to go through the same process that the previous parliament went.
Yes.
The department is the custodian of the bill. They decide we want to change this bill or we want to make a new bill, whatever. Then they start the whole process with a green paper and a white paper and a gazette, and then the moment that the department gives that bill to the parliament processes, parliament becomes the custodian of the bill. First of all, it's the NA. When they amended that bill and they adopted in the House on the second reading, they sent the bill in an amended form to the NCOP. Now the NCOP, our own public participation processes on whatever we decided, and the bill has to go out to the provinces. That bill can only be amended by those processes. This B bill cannot now be amended by the department. The department cannot amend the bill in the process halfway between the two houses. Now, I asked 3 times today about this question. I still don't have clarity, because when I raised the question, the department's person said, yes, it is amendments from the NA as well as proposals from the department. She said it loud and clear. So I asked again and I said, I want clarity on that. Then the legal advisor came in and she answered. And she gave me the process that I know. But it didn't say what is the right thing. And the only way that we will know the right thing is to find the report and to get it, because we have to get it. And you know, all of you know, the people who know me will know that I will get that report. It's easy. I won't go and find it in the ATCs. So let us get our processes right, because we do understand that it's from DAF to environment. If there are new proposals that the department decided they should take on board, in spite of the fact that the NA did not do so, then we must just make sure that those proposals come through the public participation processes in the province. Because I think there were some valid proposals made to the portfolio committee that was not taken into consideration, that we should take into consideration. Let us just assure that we do it by the right process. That's all that I'm interested in.
No, thanks, Honorable.
And then also, I think when do we determine the dates for negotiating mandates and so on, or is that you do as the chairperson? How does it work? Thank you.
Honorable Kepi, I don't do anything without the members of the portfolio committee. I'm just chairing the committee. I'm not the dictator.
The portfolio committee. No, chairperson. I'm disappointed.
No. Anything that is happening in the committee, members of the committee must be aware. I'm not going to do anything alone. Honorable members, Honorable Kathy, we noted all the point that we have raised. I hope, Aska, you write them so that we can give to the department. We need answers on that. Members, let me take this opportunity to thank you for participating in this meeting. And you must remember 2 o'clock sitting today. Go and prepare yourself for today's sitting. I thank you for participating in this meeting, especially when we were dealing with the legislation, because the legislation is a guiding tool for us as the members of parliament. And as you said, Honorable Kathy, we are the custodian of the legislation. I thank you, members. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, members. Bye-bye.
On the ball.
Bye-bye, Honorable Nana.
Hello.
Bye-bye, Honorable Arnold. Bye-bye, Honorable Kathy. Bye-bye, Honorable Itumeleng Zube. Bye-bye, members. All members, bye-bye.
Hi, morning, Judy. Are you fine?
Hi, yes, I am. And you, Andre?
I'm fine, thanks.
Okay, that's great. I'm just testing my light here because I'm using my MacBook for the first time.
Yeah, it's not as clear as it was previously.
Hey?
I said it's not as clear now. Now you
Yeah,
better.
now I switched on the light, you see, but now I must just look at my angles because I've used to use my iPad, but it's a bit limiting. This one I can continue doing my work while the meeting is on.
Yeah, it is. No,
Okay.
fine, it's fine. Just check if you switch off your light. I want to check if your light is off, if it's better.
I want to put the Parliament screensaver thing, but I must see how to do it. I've done it for Zoom, but I haven't done it for the MacBook.
Yes, I'm gonna give your names to the IT people. They will contact you. I spoke to them last time, so they will contact you and assist you with that kind of thingy. Because I don't think there's some challenges with MS Platform, but they will be able to help you and how to deal with it. But I'll send you contact details to them.
Off them, yeah. Okay then.
No,
Okay,
fine.
thanks. Is it clearer with the light off?
To me, yeah, because the light shines at the back. So, but I'm thinking it's clearer for me.
Okay, I'll see what to do. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. If you can sit in front of your light source.
Like that.
Yeah, that's much better.
But clearer, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll sit like this. Yeah. Thank you, Andre. Okay, bye.
Hi, morning, Mr. Mbuyani.
Morning, how are you, Andre?
I'm fine, yourself. I can hear you, but not as clear as last time.
Okay, now let me try to do something. How about now? Yes. How is it now?
Now it's a bit better.
Okay. All right. No, thanks, Andre.
Okay, no problem.
Andre.
Agenda, I can hear you. Hi, good morning, Ms. Mwatse.
Good morning, Andre.
Are you fine?
Good morning, Chief. I'm fine, and you?
I'm okay, thanks.
Thank you. Morning, Chief Whip.
Your mic is off still.
Hi, Dipo.
Hi, Whip. Hi, Whip.
How are you?
I'm good, and you, my dear?
Okay, I see they must sort out our background, eh? Okay. Everybody mustn't see you sitting in the car.
I don't know how to install the background in this Microsoft.
Andre's going to help us.
Yeah, I'm going to send your details to them, so they will contact you guys.
All right.
But it's
It's also good to have a mobile meeting.
Yeah.
It's not only virtual, it's mobile, it's moving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not all of us can just drive to another venue during the meeting.
Hi, this network is very poor. Here in Limpopo is worse.
Yes.
Eish.
Good day, Chairperson and members.
Good day. Who we
Good
greeting?
day.
It's Tebe speaking.
Hello,
Yes,
Brother
Alex.
Muyani. Happy.
Good day, good day, good day.
Hey man, you must tell us how you doing it, Comrade Happy, ne?
Yeah.
0 deaths. Aibo. I must come fetch some of ours, man, in the Western Cape.
On the ground.
Yeah.
Good day, Chairperson and members. Tebe Kulu on the other hand.
Good morning, Babu Tebekulu.
Oh, Msufek.
Siyakwamukela baba.
Niyabulela.
Awuzwaki. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chair and colleagues.
Hi,
Good morning. How are you?
Connected.
COVID-free and blessed. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a good
You
answer.
on COVID now. COVID now.
Oh, welcome, Honorable Tring.
Thank you.
Hi, morning, Mr. Mulder.
Morning, how are you?
I'm fine, yourself?
Fine, thank you.
That's good.
Honorable Mulder.
Honorable Chair, how are you?
Slowly getting there. Good morning.
Keep on going, Chair.
Definitely. No choice, no choice. We have to keep going. Jesus.
Hi, morning, Ms. Yaku.
Morning. Guys.
Hi, Andrew. I think we can start. If you can help me check.
Chair?
Because I see there are 26 connections.
Chair, there's 26 connections, but we will live broadcast and we'll start at 12 o'clock, Chair.
Or 12 o'clock?
Yeah.
Sharp. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I see. I have 2 minutes.
Yeah, you have 2 minutes, yes.
Okay. No, that's fine.
Thanks.
Sure.
Chair, I think we should start proceedings, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much and good day. I think we should be able to confirm that today's meeting, the purpose of the meeting is to receive a briefing from the International Trade Administration Commission of South Africa, that's ITAC, on its contribution to government's COVID-19 response